Doll customization may not be appropriate for children without the assistance of an adult. These are creative works made by experienced artists using toxic materials and potentially hazardous tools. These include chemical aerosols, knives and razors, cutting tools, skin and eye irritants, such as clays, glues, and acetone, and especially paints and glosses, indicated to contain carcinogens. Please read all warning, instructive, and cautionary material thoroughly before using these products. Viewer discretion is advised. Do not allow your children to emulate these projects without adult supervision.
Hello everyone, and happy Halloween! For this spooky season, I decided to make a doll that personifies both autumn and Halloween. As you can see, I went with a Victorian-style blouse and high-waisted skirt. I chose green hair and an autumn-inspired color palette. The base I will be using is a second-generation Ever After High head with a first-generation Monster High body. A whole lot of this project gave me problems and I changed a few things, but overall I feel I stuck with my concept art pretty well. Without further ado, let's get artistic and see what comes from my mind today. This doll, I already took out the hair and removed the face, so I can move right along with the blushing. I blushed the body even though her whole body will be covered with her outfit. I think I was just going through the motions and didn't really think about it. Oh well. I feel better knowing I brought the same amount of life to her body as her face, just in case I decide to change her clothes later. As always, I use my Mungyo soft pastels to bring life to the plastic. I blush the joints of the body and the face gets a healthy dose of reds and browns along her jaw, temples, cheeks, and nose. I even use a contour palette from my makeup kit as an experiment. I like the way it turned out, but I'll definitely use them more sparingly next time. I use green pastels for the brows because I like making my eyebrows the same color as the hair to make the hair look like it's more natural. I finished this first layer with some dark purple pastels on the lips and some yellows and oranges on the eyes before I spray her with a layer of Mr. Super Clear. After 30 minutes, I move on to the next layer. I use my white chalk pencil to white out the eyes, then move on to more blushing and color layout. I continue using some of my makeup with these shimmery eyeshadows. Using a tiny applicator, I dust on yellows and oranges around the eyes for some shadow. Bright colors are the hardest to keep on a face-up because the sealant darkens the color. So you will see me reapplying these colors as well as whites and creams throughout the whole face-up process. After I build up as much color as I'm going to get, I spray the face once again. Next layer, and it's time to start drawing the details. I used watercolor pencils to draw in the face. I start with eyeliner and the iris. I don't do very many dolls with natural eye colors, and since she will have so much unnatural color, I gave her brown eyes. I used a gray pencil to add depth to the sclera and kept using my chalk pencil to keep that white as bright as possible. I then used a cream color to highlight the bridge of her nose and the bone above her eyes. If I make a mistake, I keep my eraser pencil close by to fix them as quickly as possible. Best to get the mistakes out of the way now before you have to worry about it later on. I dust on more yellow eyeshadow and purple lips, and it's time for more sealant. The next couple of layers is more of the previous. Building color in the eyes, lips, brows, and makeup. Keep pushing the colors as much as possible. Once I feel like I've gone as far as I can with the pencils and pastels, I seal it again and move on to paint. I use craft acrylic paint to brighten up the iris, sclera, lashes, and eyebrows. I have a variety of cool paints I use for my face-ups, but my favorites are the Color Shift palette from Folk Art. I use these in the purples for the lips of this project. If you have a chance, you should check them out. They're sold at any Walmart, and the whole set is only about $10, and they're super worth it. Anyway, while I was droning on, I painted the irises a nice shade of brown and added a darker brown for the pupil. I added some lines darting out of the pupil to add depth and detail to the iris. I then used black to add the eyeliner and delicately painted the lashes with my tiniest brush. I think I did a pretty good job this time. After I brighten up the sclera again and go out of frame for a minute, I add the eye shines, some last minute details, and call this face up almost done. The last thing I have to do is add some shine to the lips and eyes. I use Dragonfly Glaze by Folk Art to the lips and Liquitex High Gloss Varnish to just the iris of the eyes. Lastly, I paint the scalp green. This will help hide any bald spots that may occur during the reroot later. Once that's done, it's time to take a break from the head and work on the outfit. I found these cool heels from my stock of doll clothes. They have really cool spiderweb sculpting across the toe and the bow. I paint the shoes a glossy black and dry brush some white over the webbed parts to bring out the detail. And that's it for the shoes. Time for the clothes. I used this vintage dress pattern from DG Requiem on Etsy. I used this cat fabric for the skirt, pumpkin fabric for the blouse, and orange and black striped fabric for the sleeves. I line up the pattern and cut out all the pieces I need. I sew the waistband front to the 2 back pieces on each side. You will see later that I changed the waistband to a dark red because I wasn't paying attention to my own concept art, but I fixed it. I decided to hand sew the majority of this outfit because I feel more confident with my hand sewing skills than my machine skills on such a small scale. Once the waistband is finished, I use my machine to sew this lace ribbon on the hem of the skirt. After ironing it flat, I cut the bottom of the lace to make it shorter and leave a nice wavy pattern. Next, I use my machine again to sew a gathering stitch along the top of the skirt. Pulling one side of the thread, I push the fabric together, making it nice and bulky. Once I've gathered the skirt to the right width, I pin the waistband to the skirt and sew the pieces together right sides facing. I iron it flat and sew some Velcro up the top. And lastly, sew the back, leaving some space for the booty to fit through. The skirt is done. Next is the blouse. First, I sew the bodice front to the back pieces at the shoulders. Next, I sew a couple of darts on each side of the bodice to help the fit. Next, I sew the same lace from the skirt to the cuffs of the sleeves, before gathering the tops and bottoms of the sleeve pieces. Iron them flat and attach them to the bodice. This is always the hardest part for me because sewing a curved surface is difficult whether you're hand sewing or using a machine. Once the sleeves are sewn to the shoulders, it's time to close up the bodice. Fold the bodice down and sew up the side until you get to the armpit area. That's when I sew back down to secure the seam. Then I start at the edge of the sleeve and sew down to the pit area the same way and go back up. I do this on both sides and double check the seams on the doll. Fix any mistakes that arise and the bodice is done. Now for the most time-consuming part of the doll process, the reroot. Using a handmade rerouting tool, made from a needle with the eye cut at an angle stuck into an X-Acto handle, I take strands of hair, fold it over my finger, slide it onto the needle eye, and plunge it into the pre-made plugs in the head. Then repeat that over and over and over again, starting at the hairline and working your way around the scalp. As I'm working around the head, I quickly realize I'm not going to have enough green nylon hair to finish the head. I have this orange that I think would look nice, but even that wasn't enough. The only other hair that I have that would match is this brown, but I don't quite like the color combo. So I decided to try my hand at dyeing the hair. I used some black dye from the fabric section at my local Walmart that says it's good for nylon. I start by boiling some water. The instructions said to add a cup of white vinegar to help the color stick to the material, but all this did was make the hair and my kitchen smell like vinegar for a few days, so go ahead and skip this step. Once the water has reached around 180 degrees or just below boiling, pour in the dye. I don't think I added enough dye, so just pour in the whole thing. Dye water will keep for a while so you can reuse it. Stir until the dye is dissolved and add the hank of hair. I only kept the hair in for about 10 minutes because I figured it was black, so the dye should stick quickly. I was wrong. The hair was dyed more of a purple color than black. I didn't have enough hair or time to try again, so I plugged the rest of the hair into the scalp. Once all the hair is plugged, take some Fabri-Tac glue and pour it into the hole to cover all the plugs inside. Don't do what I did and overfill the inside of the head. It took me several minutes of scooping out the excess glue and fixing any parts of plastic the glue got stuck on. After that mess was fixed, I let the glue dry for a day and then boil wash the hair. I didn't record any of this part or the styling because, quite frankly, I wasn't really thinking about it. I was so rushed to get this doll ready for Halloween, I was honestly scrambling the last bit of it. But here she is. Meet Blair. To be honest, this doll was a bit of a mixed bag for me. I really like how she turned out, but the amount of time and work that went into her was a lot. But she's done and she looks great. I am so happy to have her as a part of my doll family. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any suggestions for future videos you want to see, leave them in the comments below. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time. Bye!